Thanks, Emma. Bye,
See ya.
It is time for Nine's afternoon news.
Good afternoon, I'm Tom Steinfort and let's get straight to North Queensland where the full extent of the devastation from Cyclone Debbie is beginning to emerge as locals begin that mammoth clean-up task there. Nine's Phil Wilmington is in Mackay for us. Phil, what's the damage like there?
I've just lost IFB.
It would appear we are having a bit of trouble there. Phil, can you hear us?
Well, Tom, what I can tell you about the situation, I can hear what I can tell you, Tom, is that they evacuated 25,000 people here in Mackay a couple of nights ago at very short notice because of fears about flooding here in the township, and that's exactly what happened. We saw that happen here today. You can probably see it's still a lot of rain around here. It's almost like tropical cyclone Debbie is still hanging about.
Her modelling career. All right, let's get a quick check of the weather now with Livinia, Nixon and Livo. What's been happening around the rest of the country today?
Hi, Tom. Well, outside of Queensland, the biggest weather feature of the day is the cold front that's crossing the southeast today. A front moved through on Monday, but this is stronger and it's going to leave behind a very cold pool of air, so it'll cool things down for quite a few days in that part of the country. In the southwest, a high pressure system is moving in and that will put an end to the run of colder than average temperatures that Perth has been experiencing of late. The average March maximum is 28 degrees. It's fallen below that for the past 12 days, and for the last 2 nights, the minimum has been less than 10 degrees. But things were on the improve today. A low of 13 has warmed up to 22 so far, and it'll be back into the 30s by the weekend. There was some beautiful cloud about in Melbourne this morning that had lots of cameras snapping, mine included. It dropped to 14 degrees, but warmed up nicely, reaching a top of 27. But a change is expected around 6 p.m, and that'll be the last of the warm weather in Melbourne for a while. So 2 cities heading in opposite directions. Elsewhere, Sydney reached 29 with a few showers around lunchtime, 27 in Canberra, light showers in Adelaide and 23, 26 in Hobart. I'll have tomorrow's forecast a little later, Tom.
Some very nice photos from you there, Livo. Thank you. All right, still ahead on Nine's afternoon news. A major retailer taken to court accused of misleading its customers. Also a new cash incentive encouraging people to adopt children. And is the clock ticking on Des Hasler's future at the Bulldogs?
Thank you, Australia, for waking up with Today. Start your day with Carl and Lisa on Today.
You're watching Nine's afternoon news. These are our top stories. The full scale of destruction from Cyclone Debbie is revealed as Queenslanders begin the mammoth clean-up task in the disaster zone. 7 Mayday calls, those final frantic moments from the fatal plane crash at the Melbourne DFO, revealed in a preliminary report. And guilty verdicts, a man convicted of stabbing a promising young footballer to death outside a pizza restaurant. A plane that crashed into the DFO shopping centre at Melbourne's Essendon Airport, killing 5 people, had no pre-existing faults, according to a report out today. Nine's Brett McLeod has been studying those findings for us. Brett, authorities, it seems, are still a way off from finding the actual cause of that tragedy.
More questions than answers out of this report, Tom. Sadly, it doesn't give any clues as to why that plane crashed, killing all 5 people on board only seconds after takeoff.
There is a major push to help out the nation's lowest paid workers, with the union movement urging a $45 a week increase. Let's go straight to our political reporter, Charles Croucher in Canberra. Charles, look, it seems like this will just bring on another political battle.
It will. It's one that we see most years, but one that will likely result in the minimum wage going up, Tom. This has been brought on by the union movement today, and new ACTU President Sally McManus addressed the press club. She's submitting a claim to the Fair Work Commission to lift the minimum wage by $45 per week. That would take the figure to around $37,400 or per year, or about $18.89 per hour. Now, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, they want a rise of just $8 per week to just over $35,000 a year. Labor says they support the minimum wage but weren't specific. The government hasn't made a submission on the issue yet. The Fair Work Commission will set the rate in the coming months. They'll come into effect on the 1st of July, but the major stakeholders are laying out their cards.
A low minimum wage affects every single Australian.
It affects all our jobs. It affects our economy. It affects our tax revenue.
We need to recognise that business investment is still low in Australia. We need to do everything we can to encourage small business in particular to be able to keep people on and to hire more people.
This has inspired somewhat of a class war in Parliament, with Labor once again going after Malcolm Turnbull. It sponsored, or indeed then inspired, a spirited response from the Prime Minister. Here's part of his defence.
I've represented the battlers and I've represented the big end of town. But the one thing I've always done is I've always done the best. I've always done the best for them. And now I'm representing every Australian, and I'm doing the best for them now.
And Tom, it all looked ugly this afternoon. Tomorrow, the final day for the government to try and get their company tax cuts through before a big break before the budget.
All right, Charles Croucher in Canberra, thank you for the update. Let's get the very latest on Cyclone Debbie now, where residents, well, in North Queensland, they've spent the day cleaning up following that trail of disaster, destruction and devastation. Nine's Darren Curtis is in the town of Bowen for us. It was one of the hardest hit. Darren, can you just talk us through what some of the challenges are that they're facing there today?
Well, Tom, this is probably one of the most severe examples of the types of damage that we've had in the CBD here in Bowen. This was the local bow repairs workshop, and
at 6. All right, still to come on Nine's afternoon news, we have the finance and latest weather with Livinia and Nixon. And Liv, what does the weather have in store for us tomorrow?
Hi, Tom. Well, tomorrow we're going to see former tropical cyclone Debbie have some far-reaching effects, with heavy rain extending right along the eastern seaboard. It's possible Brisbane and surrounds could get 200 millimetres in 24 hours. I'll have all those details, plus the forecast, after the break, Tom.
All right, thank you, Livinia. Right now, though, let's have a look at what's happening in tonight's news at 6.
Tom, thank you. Good afternoon. Tonight we take you inside the holiday hotspots on Hamilton Island, left ravaged by Cyclone Debbie. Only these pictures on 9 News. Plus why the wild weather isn't over and is headed to New South Wales. In breaking news, banned Tigers player Tim Simona has been charged by police over an alleged charity scam. A thief who took a quadriplegic's buggy from Pagewood makes a wild dash from court. Did he get off? 11 new suburbs popping up in our west. Where will they be and how you can name them? Plus a shock report on knee replacements, why they aren't always needed. And would Sharks coach Shane Flanagan throw Bulldogs playmaker Josh Reynolds a lifeline? All of that coming your way, 9 News at 6.
Good afternoon. It's all happening in the north of the country today. In the Pilbara, Port Hedland picked up more than a month's worth of rain between 3 and 4 o'clock this morning, with 50 millimetres falling. And that brings the monthly total to 368 millimetres, more than 7 times the March average. Now, as we heard earlier in the bulletin, tropical cyclone Debbie has been downgraded to a tropical low. And while the hurricane force winds may have eased, the monsoonal rainfall is the threat now, with major flooding across central Queensland. And although the system is weakening, tomorrow it's going to be an extremely wet day for Brisbane, with up to 200 millimetres expected in 24 hours. But residents have been assured that this rainfall will not be enough to cause a repeat of the 2011 Brisbane River flood. That's because it's been a dry summer, so there's no build-up of moisture in the catchments. But it's still a phenomenal amount of rain, and the city could collect almost double its monthly average. But it's not just Brisbane in the firing line. Byron Bay is also forecast to be hit with up to 200 millimetres. And further south, Sydney can expect up to 50. So it'll be quite an unusual day in Sydney tomorrow. Very warm overnight, only dipping to 23 degrees. And it's only forecast to warm up by another 3 degrees. And along with that heavy rainfall, it's also likely to be extremely windy, with southerly winds gusting at around 45 kilometres an hour. So, of course, very wet for Brisbane, and also a narrow temperature range. A low of 24 will only warm up to 27. With a front about to hit Melbourne this evening, the city will feel the chill tomorrow, a low of 12 and a maximum of 18. There'll be a couple of millimetres in showers, more likely in the east, but they should clear in the afternoon. Cooler in Adelaide, set to reach 20, but only a slight chance of a shower. Perth is heading up, warming up for a sunny top of 27 degrees. Hobart should drop to 9 degrees overnight before reaching 17 with some drizzle. 20 degrees in Canberra with up to 10 millimetres, and Perth is definitely looking the pick of the bunch tomorrow, Tom.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Livo. Let's have a look at your finance now. And the All Ordinaries closed more than 50 points higher. Big gains for the miners and energy stocks and banks. The Aussie dollar is worth 76.37 US cents, 61 British pence and 70 euro cents. And that's 9's afternoon news. Our next bulletin is at 6 o'clock. I'm Tom Steinfort. Have a great evening. Hopefully see you back here tomorrow.